evening. Welcome to this Committee of Adjustment. It is 6:45 p.m. on December the 7th, 2023, and I will call this meeting to order. Remind committee members of any disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. None disclosed. Section 3, adoption of minutes of the previous meeting. That would include the minutes of November the 16th, 2023. Anyone have any issues with those minutes? Any errors or omissions? And I would entertain a mover and seconder for the following: that the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting held November 16th, 2023 be approved as presented. Committee member Weisler and committee member Chilcott will second. All in favor? This evening we're dealing with a minor variance application A 1023 Hebert 6 McNeil Court. The purpose of this variance is to grant relief from section 10.12.7.4 in the zoning bylaw to permit a maximum building coverage of 49%, whereas 40% is the permitted maximum in the R17 zone for the property located at 6 McNeil Court, Corporal Lot 4, Plan 11M188. The effect of this variance will be to accommodate a new single detached dwelling on the subject property that exceeds the maximum permitted building coverage. And at this point, we will entertain the staff presentation. That's report DS 6323 by Margaret Underhill, Secretary Treasurer, regarding Committee of Adjustment minor variance A 1023 Hebert 6 McNeil Court. Good evening, Marg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. I would just like to note, if there is anyone here in attendance for this public meeting, there is a sign-in sheet at the podium. Please sign in. So the report before the committee is from David Hebert for a minor variance application for 6 McNeil Court. The application is asking for a variance on the maximum building coverage on the lot. He's looking to have 49% approved, whereas 40% is the permitted maximum in the R17 zone, as per our zoning bylaw. The effect of the variance, he does wish to build a new single detached dwelling on the subject property, and the design of the building does take up 49% as opposed to 40% lot coverage. There's been no public comments received at the time of writing this report, except for one from Mr. Hugh McNeil, who is in favor of the application and is an adjacent landowner. The committee has to be satisfied that the application meets the 4 tests. Referring to the planner's memorandum that's attached to the report dated November 29th, there's a full analysis of the 4 tests and the variances required for the compliance. Long Point Region Conservation Authority was circulated, and the property is not subject to any approvals from them. Staff and planner concur the application does meet the criteria. We recommend the minor variance to provide the relief from under section 45 of the Planning Act to permit the construction of the detached garage, that's an error in my report, the single detached dwelling. So the recommendations before you for your consideration. I'm here for questions.
Thank you for that report. I don't see the applicant or an agent present. Have you had any correspondence from them?
No, I have not.
Anyone from the public wishing to address this issue? Okay, let's turn it over to committee questions and discussion. Any questions from the committee? Any concerns? Okay. We'll move on to section 9, decision of the committee. I will need a mover and seconder for the following. The Committee of Adjustment Secretary Treasurer's Report DS 6323 regarding the Hebert minor variance be received, and that the Committee of Adjustment considered all written and oral submissions received on this application, the effect of which helped the committee to make an informed decision. And whereas the committee agrees that the proposed variance as presented meets section 45(1)(1) of the Planning Act and is considered minor. Therefore, application A1023 by David Hebert, pursuant to section 45 of the Planning Act for a minor variance, is granted to allow relief to Municipality of Bayham zoning bylaw number Z456/2003, section 10.12.7.4, to permit a maximum building coverage of 49%, whereas 40% is the permitted maximum for a new single detached dwelling on the subject property. Mover and seconder, please. Committee member Emerson and committee member Rose will second. All in favor? Carried. Moving on to the adjournment. The Committee of Adjustment meeting for consideration of minor variance application A1023 be adjourned at 6:51 p.m. And that in accordance with the regulations of the Planning Act, notices of decision be circulated by the Secretary Treasurer accordingly. Mover and seconder. Committee member Weisler and committee member Chilcott the second. All in favor? That is carried. We are adjourned.
We are still live streaming. I'm just trying to test this for Thomas's benefit. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're much better. You're better now. I couldn't hear any of C of A. I couldn't hear Marg. I couldn't hear anybody. And it's coming across the same on YouTube.
Okay, thank you. We will move our mics closer.
Okay. Megan, before we get into open, can someone test out the podium mic to make sure it actually functions?
We're still live streaming.
Hello.
Yeah.
How is everybody doing? Can you hear
think
me?
it's the right height.
Or
for
do
it.
I need to speak louder?
That's better.
Okay,
Still really quiet, Tim.
well. If I'm any closer, I might as well just stick it in my mouth, okay? So
Put it back.
there we go. There. Hello, hello, hello. Can you imagine how much I love you?
Well,
I know the only one for you
testing
is
it.
me. Ha! Cannot be. Are we good or not?
Thomas, can you hear it?
Too much omega-3.
Thomas, can you hear me?
Yeah, but that mic is far quieter than it normally is. I'm wondering if somebody was messing around with the mic settings at some point because I mean I wasn't hearing anything around the podium. I mean, Megan basically had to eat her mic for me to hear anything.
Okay.
Tommy, can you hear me?
1 second.
Tommy.
Ready?
Go ahead.
Good evening. Welcome to the regular session of council. It is Thursday, December the 7th, 2023, 7 PM, and I will call this meeting to order. I will ask for any disclosures of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof. Council Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be on 12.2A.
12-2A. Thank you. Review of items not listed on the agenda. I'm not aware of anything tonight.
No.
Okay, announcements from council members. Deputy Mayor Weiser.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a reminder to our community that we have the Stratfordville Santa Claus Parade. Sorry. Do you want to take it down?
Oh, good. You're good.
I'm so sorry. Yes, so if you're interested in joining us for the parade, it's sure to be a great time. If you are in the parade, please line up at the Stratfordville Community Center for 10 a.m. The parade starts at 10:30, and right afterwards is a great opportunity to meet with Santa, and there's lots of treats for the kids, so please come out and enjoy.
Thank you for that. Any other announcements?
That was mine as well, Mr. Mayor.
Thomas, you have one?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if no one else from council has any announcements, I just want to reiterate to the public that our new website launched on Tuesday. So thank you to staff for providing input and getting the content ready, and for Megan for leading the project. I also want to remind residents that our municipal offices close over the holiday season. So we will be closing down at noon on Friday, December the 22nd, and reopening at 8:30 a.m. on Tuesday, January the 2nd, 2024. And for anybody who is unaware, the 2024 Warden's election was held on Tuesday, and a congratulations to Mayor Ed Ketchabaugh on being reelected as Elgin County's Warden for 2024.
Thank you. Well, thank you for that last one. I really appreciate it. Counselor Chokai.
Thank you. I just wanted to remind everyone that the last breakfast at the lodge this year is on December 17th. Hope to see you all there, because I'll be there. And I wanted to commend everyone on the new website. So far, it looks to be great. It's very easy to navigate, and I've heard nothing but good things from the people I've spoken to. So good job.
Thank you for that. I would encourage people to use it. Okay, moving on with section 7, adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting. We have the regular meeting of council held November 16th, 2023. Any errors or omissions? If not, I would entertain a mover and the seconder for the following, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held November 16th, 2023 be approved as presented. Councilor Emerson will move. Deputy Mayor Weiser will second. All in favor? That is carried. Flipping down the agenda to section 11, physical services and emergency services. 11.2, reports to council. We have report FR 0523 by Harry Bernick, Fire Chief CEMC, regarding the grant received from Enbridge Gas for the 2023 Safe Community Assist Project, Education and Training. Chief, welcome.
Thank you, Worship, Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. In July 2022, the Ontario government put forth passed a law where firefighters are now mandatory to be certified. They have 3 years to do that. This will come, we have until July 2026 to have the past members certified to continue to be a full service. And this is where we're heading to. There are challenges, especially for small municipalities and small fire departments, to meet these challenges with the educational requirements that are required for our recruits and our volunteer firefighters and paid-for-call firefighters to be properly educated so that they can meet the challenges of the exams. And it is my distinct honor to welcome Mr. Blair Heisler and Mr. Jamie Kovacs. Blair is from Enbridge, and Jamie is from the Ontario Fire Marshal's Public Safety Council, and they have a check to present to council.
Wonderful.
Out of the way.
Oh, yeah.
Stand.
Fuck you.
You want us to move?
Yeah, I'm trying to find.
Okay. How about over and up?
Here.
I'd like to catch your books, but over.
Okay, I got you.
Yes.
Okay. What if,
You
How about I stand in the background and you won't see anybody behind?
Just a second, we're gonna see if we can do something. We blank the screens for a moment. How's that?
Okay,
The
good.
other one?
No, can see it? If we can get Megan to move.
Yep. Go ahead,
Nathan,
Charles.
are you in for Megan? Yeah. Right? What if you went that way, just? Do you want me to get behind the stand with Mayor? Yes,
Oh.
please, okay.
I'd be honored.
Very few times we stand together and it usually ends up bad.
I wouldn't say that.
Oh, there, yeah.
Okay, like that, good. All right.
When that time.
Hi, good. And
Thank you.
Thank you. Me first?
yeah.
Absolutely, I'll get started. Well, you're finding your seats. Thanks for having me this evening, and I'm really happy to be able to be here and share all this picture, this grant. It's a program that I'm really proud of, and it does make me really proud to be an Enbridge employee and be able to support the community in this way. We're giving out about 100 of these grants to 100 communities, all about $5,000. So each year, that's you do the math, it's about $500,000 that we give out around the province in these. And that's money that's both between Project Zero, which is the combination smoke and CO alarms, and Project Assist that we have here tonight. So it's great to see the material. I assume that means the check has cashed and that the material is here. So that's great. Yeah, and a huge thank you to the fire department. Really appreciate the partnership and our shared priorities of public safety, emergency response, and public safety. So thank you, and appreciate you having me here this evening. Thank you, Council.
All right, I'm Jamie with the Fire Marshal's Public Fire Safety Council, and as always, I want to thank Enbridge. We hear a lot of organizations and corporations talk about supporting communities. Enbridge stands behind the communities that they operate in. This is a prime example. I'm also a volunteer firefighter down the road at Central Logan, and I can tell you how tough it is to get these textbooks and the expense of these textbooks and what a difference it makes. So Enbridge is committed to ensuring the firefighters meet the levels that are called out by the fire marshal in that 2026 that the chief was talking about. They did 50 departments with Project Assist this year, so that's $250,000 throughout Ontario for composite and volunteer departments to help with their training needs. So thanks to Enbridge. You got a great chief here as well, who's dedicated to get his firefighters up to par, which is a challenge most days. I know some days I fight the training myself, but it is needed. The fires are changing. They're getting faster, they're getting hotter, and we have to stay on top of what we do. So thanks to Enbridge, thanks to the chief, and thanks to council for having us here tonight.
And I'd like to thank both of you on the Fire Marshal's Safety Council and Enbridge for this grant. What we really strive to do with Chief Training Officer Dolly is to prepare our firefighters for the exams. You'll see that there are several exam prep books, and that was designed on purpose. Some of our firefighters have been out of school for a while, and these are basically sample questions that may be on the exam, and it's to help them prepare so that they can succeed. And that's what it's all about, is ensuring that our members succeed. Again, I thank council for tonight.
Thank you, Chief, and I want to thank our two guests this evening for being here. And the municipality certainly does appreciate the assistance from Enbridge and also the assistance of the Ontario Fire Marshals in this regard. It's important, and I think council, I can speak on behalf of council saying that if we're going to ask volunteers, professional volunteers, to perform this service for us and to keep us safe, and I certainly want to make sure they're well trained and prepared, and that even go so far as to make sure they're properly equipped. It's always been a policy and a principle of mine. I think it's reflected by members of council as well. So thank you, chief, and for your department for what they do. And gentlemen, thank you for the big assist because it means a lot to us. I want to shake your hands. You're welcome to stay, but. Well, good luck. All right, well, we're gonna need a mover and seconder for the following, that report FR 0523 regarding the grant received from Enbridge Gas for the 2023 Safe Community Assist Project. Education and training be received for information. Counselor Chilcott will move that. Counselor Froese will second. All in favor? That's carried. Moving on to item B, it's report PS 1823 by Steve Adams, Manager of Public Works, Drainage Superintendent, regarding the East Beach bioswale maintenance. Before we go on, I just want to ask Thomas, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure it's broadcasting properly. Okay, Steve, welcome.
Thank you, your worship. Good evening, council. The report before you regarding the East Beach bioswale maintenance was a motion brought forward in the August 17th meeting. Just to obtain a little information regarding the East Beach bioswale and maintenance and history. So the bioswale was created in 2018 under the phase 1 of the Port Burwell master drainage plan. And the design of the bioswale was for the stormwater runoff from the village of Port Burwell via a naturalized swale onto the shore of Lake Erie. So the bioswale was designed in regards utilizing the plants, the aggregates that were put in the bioswale and the mulch to soak up the bulk of the water before it actually entered the lake. And with this was all done under the Ministry of Environment and the Conservation of Park approval process. This was an engineer designed bioswale, and it was completed as per design in 2018. So a little bit on the maintenance of it. Public Works have pretty much annually performed pretty minimal maintenance to it. To date, just kind of includes weed eating, fence repairs. Yearly we have to dig out the outlet due to the sand that comes up on the road from winter time and just from the wind blowing. It gets pretty overrun. However, this year in the beginning of November, actually I've been working for a little while to get the ELP class, and that's the Environmental Leadership Program out of East Elgin and Elmer. They were actually quite excited finally to make it down, and they did a tremendous job. So we had a chance to walk through the swale. I kind of gave a little description of what the useful life of is it. There was 22 students there. I think there's 4 or 5 of them that were actually from BAM. So it was nice to see a bunch of group of kids out there. And yeah, they did an awesome job. We got a lot of the brush trimmed, the trees. We had actually a few noxious trees that they pointed out that were removed. So moving forward, that gave us a little bit better understanding what we can do, working with them, working with what we have to work with that way. So when it was originally designed, there was thousands, I guess, of small plants and shrubs, trees, grasses that were planted. Problem was the year 1 and 2 of it, and actually moving into 3 and 4, the bioswale when the lake levels were high, it was flooded most of the time. So this kind of promoted some growth of the cattails, and that's when the Phragmites moved in, as we see today. In the summer, our summer students did have a chance before the seed pods came fully developed to trim them down. So that was a big moving forward. I think that's kind of gonna have to be the ongoing battle. However, moving forward into 2024, We've now identified that the bioswale along with our existing storm ponds are under the new consolidated linear infrastructure under the environmental compliance approval. So with the storm management and probably along with the wastewater, we do have to have operations manuals. We have to have reporting what is completed annually to the bioswales. Haven't gotten dug too far into it. I did have a discussion with kind of the reporting, who we'd report to, and just to see what they're looking. It's very new, so it's probably going to be changing from what we're hearing. However, I talked to our municipal drainage engineer, Street and Associate, and asked if they have experience with these operations manuals, the procedures on maintenance. They said in a lot of the bigger towns, the bigger storm ponds, they already have them, the big cities, so it's nothing new. It's a pretty straightforward. Obviously, they would identify all of our ponds, future ponds that, you know, proposed at the moment, and we put that all into some sort of operations manual that Public Works is gonna have to follow when it comes to maintenance. So I think early on, since we're jumping into, we'll be following a program. It's too early to jump in and what we're gonna have to do until we know what we have to do exactly. I think talking to the environmental leadership program, the not historical society, the horticultural society down in Port Burwell, they've done a lot of work to maintain them. They're all willing to work together to continue to this, a fall and spring program. So moving ahead, obviously within the report, we have moving on into our operating budget, the opportunity to look at getting one of these design manuals produced by our engineer. There is a cost of $5,000. Currently, it's not in a budget, so it's something I think council might want to talk about later on in our operating meeting. And moving forward, staff definitely think it'll be a good idea to get on that plan. And if that's phase one of, you know, maintaining these bioswales, I know aesthetic looks of it and full of Phragmites is not good. You know, pushing forward, we kind of have a plan to mulch it with the ELP class in the springtime again. And maybe this will be enough that we can slowly move the Phragmite out year to year. So moving forward, yeah, I think just a little bit of a shout out to the ELP class because they did do a tremendous job. The instructor there, Adam, he organized his end, and we just worked with him on tools and getting rid of the stuff, and worked out really well for the municipality. So any questions? I'm here to take them.
Thank you very much for that report, Steve. And yes, I congratulate you and the ELP team for digging in, so to speak, and lending a hand down here on the bioswale. Going to open up the floor to questions and or comments from council members. Do you have any questions, any concerns? Deputy Mayor Weiser.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. With the operations manual, Steve, I'm just curious as to, would that just outline the expectation of how often are we looking at maintaining that? Is that just gonna be a twice a year kind of project, or?
Yeah, through your worship. From what John kind of indicated to me, each one will be a little bit different. The larger storm ponds, we're gonna see a 5 or even 10 year. And this will be good because this will also give us a chance to add this to our budget moving forward. There's gonna be the larger ponds are gonna be significant. The bioswale, from what I'm gathering from what he's like, looking at the overall design when it was originated, it's gonna be hard to go back without redoing it, digging it out. He didn't suggest doing that because the water level in the beach, obviously the water table is up and down. So annually, he said, it's just keeping the reports, but the big storm ponds and the subdivisions, that's going to be more of a 5 to 10 year plan in the end. And then the bioswales, obviously, there'll be just the sediment in front of the storm pond. If there's any other reason we have to go in there for environmental reasons, oil or so, yeah, it should be the bioswales. I think would be probably the basic of it all, the basic part of it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Steve, going back, and I should have asked this back a couple of months ago when we talked about the linear, whatever, the CLI.
Yes.
Okay. With the bioswales, obviously, you're gonna have an operations plan or whatever to maintain them. Do you foresee that this is going to have any future requirements to monitor all of our drainage outlets?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, talking to the environmental, I don't have a name off the top of my head, but he's kind of running the program. I can see this absolutely jumping forward, especially with, any outlets into the, everything comes to a river or a lake, and it sounds like this is the beginning of the program. So, talking to other municipalities, actually, hasn't even entered, from what I've gathered, across Elgin, we're a little bit of ahead of this, with it, but obviously it was something that was kind of needed with the maintenance on the bioswale from the, the waterfront committee. So that's gonna be interesting.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because, obviously, the earlier discussion had, the implications of discouraging the use of stormwater management ponds and going to a direct outlet. And if, the bioswale, which is essentially it's a stormwater outlet,
Yes.
it's a visible one, it's in the public area as well, but I'm just foreshadowing down the road here, thinking we have many, many drainage outlets across the municipality. This could create a whole new department for Bay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Trying to monitor. I'm not encouraging this. I'm just saying, be prepared. Like, wow.
Yeah, obviously, exactly what you said. There's big expense when you have to start maintaining, and, it's these storm ponds, and, that's why obviously we're gonna try pushing that, all other opportunities come first, but
Right.
it's gonna be interesting.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Anything else from any member of council? Okay, well, thank you again for that report. The motion reads that report PS 1823 regarding the East Beach bioswale maintenance be received for information. And that further discussions regarding funds for a municipal stormwater management system operations manual be referred to the 2024 operating budget discussions. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Deputy Mayor Weisler and Councillor Chilcott will second. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on with section 12, Development Services, Sustainability and Conservation. 12.1 Correspondence, 12.1.1 to receive for information. Item A, Notice of Passing of Zoning Bylaw Amendment, ZBA 1223, Bonneville Farmland, Ontario, Inc. Ontario 4, Inc. 55314 Jackson Line. Item B, Notice of Decision regarding minor variance A 0823 Thiessen, 45 Chatham Street. Item C, Notice of Meeting regarding proposed minor variance A 1023 Hebert, 6 McNeil Court. Does anyone have any questions or concerns? And the motion reads that items 12.1, 1A through C be received for information. Mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Weisler, Councillor Chilcott will second. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. 12.2, reports to council. Report DS 6423 by Margaret Underhill, Planning Coordinator, Deputy Clerk, regarding consent application E224, Dan Froze and Dan Froze Farms, Inc.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report before you is in regards to a consent application E224 received from Kimberly Muldar, agent on behalf of Dan Froze and Dan Froze Farms, Inc. For lands located on Glen Erie Line. The purpose of the application is to apply for the creation of a residential lot containing an existing dwelling surplus to the needs of the farm operation. The application will be considered by the Land Division Committee January 24th, 24. The planner's memorandum is included in the report dated November 29th. It analyzes the application against the provincial policy statement, the Elgin County official plan, municipality of Bayham official plan, and zoning bylaw. Staff and planner have reviewed the application. We recommend support of the consent application for the surplus farm dwelling as it does meet the criteria. And thereby it would be creating a new residential parcel. And the recommendations before you with several conditions. Rezoning would be required as per the policies of the official plan. There is a mobile home that would have to be removed. Planning report fee, digital survey, and 911 civic number sign for the retained parcel. The report is before you for consideration. Any questions?
Well, thank you, Mark, for that report. Does any member of council have any questions and or concerns? All right, seeing none, the motion would read that report DS 6423 regarding the consent application E224 Dan Froze and Dan Froze Farms, Inc. be received. And that council recommend to the Elgin County Land Division Committee that consent application E224 be granted subject to the following conditions and considerations. Number one, the owner obtain approval of a zoning bylaw amendment for the proposed severed parcel from an agricultural A1 zone to a rural residential RR zone with a site-specific exception to recognize and permit the existing front yard depth of 8.5 meters for the existing dwelling. Item two, the owner obtain approval of a zoning bylaw amendment for the proposed retained lands from an agricultural A1 zone to a special agricultural A2 zone to prohibit new dwellings. Item three, that the owner removes the existing mobile home trailer on the subject property. Item four, that the owner provides the planning report fee payable to the municipality. Number five, the owner provides a digital copy of the final survey of the subject lands to the municipality. Item six, that the owner purchases a civic number sign for the retained parcel from the municipality. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Chilcott will move. Deputy Mayor Weiser will second. All in favor? Okay, that is carried. Thank you. Item B, report DS 6523 by Margaret Underhill, Planning Coordinator, Deputy Clerk, regarding consent application E424 Lankhusen Farms Limited. Mark?
Thank you, Your Worship. The report before you for consent application E424 requesting the severance of a surplus farm dwelling, surplus to the needs of the farm operation. Subject lands are located on Vienna Line. You will recall that there was a previous official plan amendment, OPA 0123, adopted by Council May 18, 2023, and it received approval from Elgin County on August 8, 2023, purposely addressing official plan section 2.1.7.1 by adding a site-specific policy, section 2.1.7.6, to permit the severance of the existing dwelling made surplus through farm consolidation that previously did not conform to the policy. And the policy requires that a dwelling be owned by the farm operation within the municipality. The ownership only owns a house in the neighboring municipality, or township, I should say, of Malahide. So the OPA did add a site-specific policy in order to allow for this consent application to come forward. It will be considered in January 24 by the LDC. So the planner's memorandum dated November 29 does analyze the application against the provincial policy statement, the Elgin County official plan, municipality of Bayham official plan, and zoning bylaw. Staff also want to recognize the lands are within the Vienna Line drain installed in 2019. There is a condition included pertaining to the drain. Staff and planner recommend the support of the consent application for a surplus farm dwelling, creating a new residential parcel with the recommended conditions in the recommendation for your consideration and any questions.
Okay, thank you for that report. I thought there might have been more. No, no. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, I have one hypothetical. The bunkhouse that exists on the site is to be retained as a supplementary farm dwelling?
Yes, your worship, and we're going to enter into a development agreement to
Okay.
formalize that.
I wondered how that'd be accommodated because there is, typically, the owner would reside on the same property with.
Correct. Condition number 3
Yes.
does address that we will formalize that through a development agreement. Much like we do when we're looking at a minor variance for a supplementary farm dwelling, we will look at that at this point.
All right, thank you for that. Anyone else have any questions? You leave me all the easy motions to read here. Hang on. The motion reads, a report DS 6523 regarding the consent application E424 Lancusen Farms Inc. be received. And that council recommend to the Elgin County Land Division Committee that consent application E424 be granted subject to the following conditions and considerations. Item 1. The owner obtain approval of a zoning bylaw amendment for the proposed severed parcel from an agricultural A1 zone to a site-specific rural residential RRXX zone to permit the rear yard depth of 3 meters, permit the existing oversized accessory building of 285 square meters constructed prior to the passing of the future bylaw, as well as the prohibition of the keeping of livestock. Item 2. The owner obtain approval of a zoning bylaw amendment for the proposed retained lands from an agricultural A1 zone to a site-specific special agricultural A2 XX zone to prohibit new dwellings and recognize the existing supplementary farm dwelling constructed prior to the passing of the future bylaw. Item 3, that the owner enters into a development agreement with the municipality to register the existing supplementary farm dwelling, the bunkhouse, and agree to the standard agreement for the supplementary farm dwellings. Item 4, that the applicant initiate and assume, if required, all engineering costs associated with the preparation of a revised assessment schedule for the Vienna Line drain in accordance with the Drainage Act, RSO 1990, as amended, with a deposit to be paid in full to the municipality prior to the condition being deemed fulfilled. If the deposit does not cover the cost of the revised assessment schedule, the applicant will be billed for any additional costs incurred. Item 5, that the owner removes the existing 2 greenhouse building structures from the subject property. Item 6, that the owner removes the existing shed located directly north and adjacent to the existing barn on the proposed severed lot from the subject property. Item 7, that the owner provides the planning report fee payable to the municipality. Item 8, that the owner provides a digital copy of the final survey of the subject lands to the municipality. Item 9, that the owner purchase a civic number sign for the retained parcel from the municipality. Mover and seconder, please. Councilor Froese will move. Deputy Mayor Weisler will second. All in favor? That's carried. Brings us to item C, report DS 6623 by Margaret Underhill, Planning Coordinator, Deputy Clerk, regarding consent application E624, Gregory Underhill Farms Limited.
Thank you, your worship. This report before you is to consider a consent application E6-24 received from appointed agent David Rowe on behalf of Gregory Underhill Farms Limited for a property located on Vienna Line. This application will be considered by the Land Division Committee January 24, 24. The planner's memorandum dated November 29th analyzes the application subject to the provincial policy statement, Elgin County official plan, municipality of Bayham official plan, and zoning bylaw. Further in the report, it was noted at the time of writing the report, one point was to note that the application as presented does not meet the zoning regulations for the retained parcel's minimum lot frontage. Therefore, a condition has been included to revise the sketch in order to achieve the minimum lot frontage on the retained parcel by slightly reducing the frontage on the severed parcel while maintaining the minimum lot areas for both. Update to the time that the report was circulated. The application through Mr. Rowe has been revised. The sketch has been revised, has been circulated to the county secretary treasurer. They have revised to meet the zoning regulations. They have reduced the frontage of the severed lot, and that would increase the frontage of the retained to meet the requirement of the zoning bylaw. So in other words, they have achieved the requirement for frontage on both. They have retained the 0.4 hectares or 1 acre minimum lot size for the severed parcel and the minimum requirement for the retained. So the condition number 3, I believe, in the recommendation can be removed. The revised sketch
Excuse me.
will be, like I said, it was circulated to the county, but it will be presented to the LDC when the meeting comes about. So we're satisfied with the revision. And otherwise, staff and planner, we do recommend support of the consent application for a surplus farm dwelling and the creation of a new residential parcel with the recommended conditions minus condition number 3. And I leave it to you, your worship, for any questions.
Thank you for that report, Mark. Does anyone have any questions? The motion would read that report DS 6623 regarding the consent application E624 Gregory Underhill Farms Limited be received. And that council recommend to the Elgin County Land Division Committee that consent application E624 be granted, subject to the following conditions and considerations. Number 1, the owner obtain approval of a zoning bylaw amendment for the proposed severed parcel from an agricultural A1 zone to the rural residential RR zone. Number 2, the owner obtain approval of a zoning bylaw amendment for the proposed retained lands from an agricultural A1 zone to a special agricultural A2 zone to prohibit new dwellings. Item 3, that the owner provides the planning report fee payable to the municipality. Item 4, that the owner provides a digital copy of the final survey of the subject lands to the municipality. Item 5, that the owner obtain a road access permit from the municipality for a new access to the retained lands. And item 6, that the owner purchases a civic number sign from the municipality for the retained parcel. Anyone interested in moving and seconding that? You have a question?
Yes, sir. Through you, Mr. Mayor, was not number 3 removed?
In your original council package. It was.
Okay.
Yes, the
I
clerk
apologize.
advised me that she had revised the draft
Right.
minutes accordingly.
Thank you.
Okay. So Councillor Emerson would move that. Who was second? Councillor Chilcott. All in favor? That's carried. Which brings us to item D. Report DS 6723 by Margaret Underhill, Planning Coordinator, Deputy Clerk, regarding the rezoning application ZBA 1123 Shaw and Shipway. Marg?
Thank you, your worship. This application before you, just have to find my report here, is for further consideration of a rezoning application. Council will recall there's been a public meeting. There's already been one staff report presented regarding this rezoning application. And it was deferred for more information. That's explained in the report. We were looking for an MDS2 report and analysis, as well as consideration if there needed to be a nutrient management strategy prepared, and as well getting comments from the LPRCA. Staff received an additional Arcadis memorandum dated November 29th attached to your report. This being the second memorandum in consideration of this zoning bylaw amendment. The memorandum provides a further analysis of the zoning amendment application with the MDS2 report analysis, nutrient management strategy, and LPRCA information provided by the applicant and the municipal planner. Based on the most recent analysis, the application as presented does not conform to the Municipality of Bayham official plan. There is still issue with MDS two setbacks and requirements to the neighbors. And that's where our concern and our consideration has to be. We're providing two options to council at this point. Option one is to refuse the zoning bylaw amendment application as presented for specified reasons in the recommendation. Option two, to defer the application again to amend and recirculate as a new proposal with a reduced number of livestock that would conform to the Bayham official plan and meet the intent and purpose of the MDS guidelines. Since the circulation of the report, the applicants themselves have notified that they will reduce the number of livestock. They were originally looking to reduce to 20 chickens, 6 goats, and 2 pigs, and they would be willing to prepare an MDS2 analysis. However, further notation from them, they are willing to reduce down to 1 pig. So 20 chickens, 6 goats, and 1 pig. You read in the planner's memorandum that further reduction of the livestock may make the MDS2 more compliant to the property having livestock on it, where we know rural residential does not allow livestock. And this is the whole point of the applications. They want to have it. The information prepared by our planner attached to the report shows the mapping and where the MDS affects the neighboring properties. This was prepared by our planner on our own accord to show what MDS2 would mean to this property. With the deferral of the application, it will be the onus of the applicant to prepare an MDS2 mapping to show that they would comply. It is up to them to show that they can make it work, basically. So just if you have any further questions or questions about MDS specifically, we do have our municipal planner online. I'm hoping, Megan, that everything worked. Christian is online to answer any questions or to assist us in understanding exactly what this report is providing to you, and perhaps a better understanding through the work that he did on this application. So, hi, Christian, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you, Margaret.
All right, thank you. So I'll leave it with your worship and council for discussion.
All right, thank you very much for that report, Marg, and thank you, Christian, for joining us this evening. I'm going to admit, I've been looking at this map that you provided, and I still don't know where it is.
Through your worship, I can certainly walk through and explain the mapping, and let me just share my screen just to make it clear. Let me know when you can see it.
We can see it.
Okay.
Now, which one is
Yeah. So I can. So I'll give a rundown or overview. So essentially, the red outline here is the subject lands. So the subject lands are represented by the red outline, and you will note that the orange triangles on residential dwellings on properties that are zoned agriculture have a radius of 102 meters. And that's what these dashed lines are, these dashed lines rather are. And the rural residential lot here, that's to the north, that's zoned rural residential, is outlined in purple. And that also has a 102 meter radii around it. So the one thing is, and I will note that there is a difference. So the reason why the rural residential zone, is that zone property to the north, is actually measured from the property line, the mutual property line here, is because it's a non-agricultural lot, whereas all of the ones here that have orange triangles on it and have the radius around them, or the radii rather, are zoned agricultural, and they're on and they're residential dwellings on agricultural lots. So really, if you look in, and I'll try to zoom in here, as it stands, and I should reiterate that this calculation here was based on the current proposal as it stands right now. So again, 30 chicken, 6 sheep, 6 goat, and 3 pig. And this is essentially the only area in which that would be permitted, and which is well outside of where the applicant had wanted to propose the accessory structures and where the livestock would be housed. So I hope that explains this schedule here, this mapping, and please let me know if you have any other questions.
No, that explanation is good. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Any questions for either Christian and or Marg? So just to carry on the discussion, then if they reduce the number of livestock units, of course they were below 5 nutrient units anyway. But how does that impact the MDS2 calculation?
Through your worship, so essentially the MDS2 calculation may be reduced if there are less livestock or certain type of livestock that would ultimately produce less odor. So essentially, the like pigs or swine rather would carry more odor, which would increase the setback. So by reducing that, it may reduce the setbacks, the MDS2 setbacks that are required, pushing it closer to the dwelling, and not causing a nuisance from an odor and noise perspective to residential dwellings within proximity. So again, if they reduce the number of livestock and or type, specifically pig, because again those produce the most odor, it is likely that they will be reduced. However, that would need to be confirmed through the applicant's assessment, and I would certainly need to review that again before coming to a conclusion or a definitive answer on that.
All right, thank you for that. Marg, you had indicated in your comments that the applicants are considering a reduction in numbers and we're willing to work with the municipalities to see if they can meet the criteria.
That is correct, Your Worship.
It kind of leads me to perhaps giving them a chance to do so, but that's entirely up to council, see what you're thinking. Does any member of council have anything further to ask or comments? Like, I understand the whole reasoning behind the planning application, simply to reduce future land use conflicts. That's what we get that. I'm just trying to see if there's a way that we can achieve the goal and satisfy the residents as well. Councilor Prose.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How many dogs or cats or children can they have? Because they also stink.
3 dogs.
It's kind of a serious question.
No, you're absolutely correct. 3 dogs. There's no limit on children.
Cats?
No limit on cats.
No limit on cats. Okay, sounds good.
But thank you for that comparison. Councilor Chilcott.
I think we should just defer it one more time, and if they can't get it where it needs to be, then they've had 2 shots.
Consensus, Councilor Emerson?
Well, I agree. Far be it for us to stand in the way of anybody trying to raise their own food.
Sure.
I think sometimes we impose too much on people's liberties if they can move the property.
I understand that. Yeah, if this was in the middle of a hamlet, it wouldn't be that hard of a decision.
No.
All right. So I'm getting a bit of a consensus. I feel like just take a minute, Deputy Mayor, but I'm getting a bit of a consensus that there's an interest in deferring one more time to do this. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Has any notice been circulated to the neighbors? Like, has there been any comment from the neighbors?
Through your worship, there was notice sent out for the public meeting, and there were no comments received back.
I did have a chance conversation with trying to remember her name, Ms. Shipway, one evening, and she mentioned that she has spoken to all the neighbors and they all seem supportive. But then again, since notice has been circulated and if no one wants to speak up, you can only assume they're supportive.
And through your worship, we do have to be considerate of not only current property owners, but potential future property owners
Yes.
to the lands that are surrounding the subdivision.
Absolutely, and that's the whole point. We're trying to mitigate future land use conflicts. Okay. Is it an either or? All right, so the whole thing? You guys just want me to read, practice for my night before Christmas story. All right. Okay, here's the motion. That report DS 6723 regarding the Shaw and Shipway rezoning application ZBA 1123 be received for information. And that pursuant to Planning Act regulations, Bill 73 Smart Growth for Our Communities Act 2015. It be pointed out that at the public participation meeting held September the 21st, 2023, associated with this application, there were no written submissions and no oral presentation received regarding this matter. And that council considered staff report DS 5723 on October the 5th, 2023, and deferred the application for the purpose of obtaining additional information regarding MDS2 report analysis, nutrient management strategy, and LPRCA comments. And that all considerations were taken into account in council's decision passing this resolution. And that council defer the requested zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 1123, subject to the applicant amending the application for further consideration. Item A, by proposing a reduced number and or type of livestock to generate less odor and reduce the required MDS2 setbacks. And by submitting an MDS2 map schedule and associated calculations prepared by a qualified professional similar to what was prepared by municipal staff, demonstrating that the proposed livestock accessory buildings structures are located outside the MDS2 setbacks to ensure that the intent and purpose of the MDS guidelines are met. Mover and seconder, Councillor Emerson will move. Councillor Chilcott will second. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Moving on with section 13, finance and administration, 13.1 correspondence, 13.11 to receive for information. Item A, Prince Edward County regarding the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks expand permit by rule proposal. Item B, Loyalist Township regarding Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks expand permit by rule proposal. Item C, Municipality of Tweed regarding funding grant programs. Item D, Town of Bracebridge regarding request for amendment to Legislation Act 2006. E, Township of Pushlinch regarding illegal land use enforcement. F, Township of Pushlinch regarding amendment to the Legislation Act 2006. G, Elgin County regarding the November 14th, 2023 County Council highlights. H, Elgin Group Police Services Board regarding Plank Road Chute Line and Northern Vienna Bridge. I, Elgin Group Police Services Board regarding September 20th, 2023 minutes. And J, Capstone Infrastructure regarding virtual public meeting. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, comments regarding any of these items of correspondence? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, with Item A and B, I just had a few questions in regards to that. I reached out to staff and I also had a conversation with Long Point Region. So they're actually looking into this as well because Long Point Region received this on their agenda as well. So I know we had some information come to council earlier in the year about, you know, specifically around the holding ponds and things like that, but this is a little different. So I was just looking for some more clarification on that and I'm having difficulty getting it. So just one to watch, I guess, for right now. And I would be interested if maybe Thomas has any information. The permit to rule, I'm just curious as to exactly which section it's referring to.
Permit by rule?
Yes, sorry.
Yes.
By rule, yeah. So I'm not sure if Thomas has a comment or perhaps we could maybe revisit that with a little more information.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. No, I don't have any further information at this time, but if council wishes for staff to look into the matter and bring something back, we'd be happy to do so.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I guess just that one section where it talks about posing threats to human health and the environment, just would like a little more clarification on what exactly they're speaking of there. So yeah, I would be interested and I'm sure Long Point would be interested as well because they're also looking into it. Thank you.
Okay, any other additional or comments regarding the items? You gave up the mic. Okay, Deputy
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few more if you don't mind.
Hmm.
G, Elgin County, the county highlights, just a couple of comments, if I may, about those highlights. Number one, I'm very encouraged and thank Elgin County for supporting Bill 21, uniting for compassionate care. So I've been monitoring this bill closely and it's something that I brought to council as well for support. So very happy and appreciative that Elgin County is also supporting that. Just a comment there. And the second one on the county highlights was the SCORE membership. So this is something that I think has been very important to Bayham for a number of years. We've supported SCORE on a municipal level, despite other municipalities within Elgin County not supporting SCORE. And so I just would strongly encourage our mayor to continue to support that around the table for Elgin County. I think food and agriculture in our community is very important, and that relationship that we've had with SCORE has been very favorable in our community. So I'd love to, I know it's been deferred to budgets, but would really like to see that the county continue to support that membership. I didn't know if you wanted to comment.
Well, I would be happy to, and thank you for that. Yes, it is before Elgin County's budget. The next session will be in early January when we consider corporate services in the budget there. The ask is for a $5,000 increase, but considering that the fee has been set since 2010, it's long overdue.
Changed, yeah.
I thought it was during the SCORE presentation, the chair made the comment and actually the perspective that the $25,000 annual fee as established in 2010, given inflationary factors over time, is probably more closer to the purchasing power of $18,000. So the argument put forward that by raising it by that 5,000, you're not actually back at where you should be, but it's closer, and they use those funds actually to leverage grants in order to take on projects for the region. Yes, I'm a proponent, a strong advocate for the organization. I'm hopeful that the county will continue to be as well. Particularly if we're looking for some kind of an inter-community transit program, which we'd like to have across Elgin. So this would be a good avenue and a good advocate to have with us. That was my plug.
If I
Yes,
may.
please continue.
Thank you. Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. So just moving on to the Police Services Board correspondence, which is H. I'm very happy to see that they have responded to our inquiry and are making efforts to to get the speeding down in Vienna under control. I know this is something that's been very passionate for our residents, so I'm encouraged to see that. And that segues into the Elgin Group Police Services Board minutes from the September 20th meeting, which is item I. And I bring that up because in those minutes, near the end of that, under additional, there was a question posed by our representative, which is Mayor Giguère, that's representing Bayham and Malahide, and that posed a really great question, and I just would make sure that our residents are aware. The question was regarding how residents should report speeding complaints, and the inspector has responded that residents could telephone the non-emergency line, which we've had on our website and available for our residents. But for cases that present an immediate threat to public safety, such as possible impaired drivers, residents are encouraged to call 911. Residents may also go through their local council, and this is why I'm highlighting this, to submit general traffic complaints with the councilors, and those complaints will be forwarded to the inspector. So that information is there for our council and for the residents to have available. And it was also added that the residents should include as much detail as possible when reporting traffic complaints, including any trends and related to that are related to time of day. So I think that's really important as well, because we're trying to address some of the hot spots in the municipality, and we need to get that information to the appropriate people that can do something about it, that can come by and obviously do some extra patrolling. So any additional information that the residents can provide is very helpful. So just pointing that out, if I may. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'm gonna suggest we got a crack at the motion.
Through your worship, I have some language here I wanted to confirm with Deputy Mayor. Was your intent that you would like staff to formally report back on that item?
Yes, please. Thank you.
So we have a motion that reads that items 13.11A through J be received for information, and that staff be directed to report back to council with further information surrounding item A.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Deputy Mayor Weisler, seconded by Councillor Emerson. All in favor? Thank you. 13.12, requiring action. Item A, Suzanne Schultzhauser regarding request for action, Lighthouse Reserve Funds. Hold on. Thomas, you want to take this on?
Yeah, I will. I'll address this and the other two items under for action. So this correspondence came in from Suzanne Schlotzhauer regarding the lighthouse and reserve funds. Her correspondence has 5 specific requests for council to consider. So I'm going to walk through each of those 5 and just provide some comment to council on what council may wish to action and what council cannot at this point. So the first request is to allocate any remaining funds from the facilities reserve to the lighthouse reserve that were allocated for the lighthouse in 2021. Now, council may recall that allocation was about $125,000. So we've had a number of aspects of lighthouse work, including the stabilization, structural review, and other components associated with those 2 projects. Now, total lighthouse spending for 2023 all in at this point in time is $136,500. So we're over that amount by $11,000. Construction came in under budget. Contract administration came in slightly over budget, and then the municipality had to acquire fencing and jersey barriers to protect the guy wires and protect the helical piles. So we're slightly over budget there. Therefore, there are no funds from the facility reserve to transfer to the lighthouse reserve. And in fact, to ensure that the lighthouse or the facilities reserve is made whole, it's expected that when the treasurer brings his reports to council in February regarding reserve status, we'll be recommending to council a transfer from the Lighthouse Reserve to the Facilities Reserve in the overage amount to ensure that the Facilities Reserve is made whole from the costs over and above which that were allocated for the lighthouse. So that will leave approximately $54,000 in the Lighthouse Reserve currently. But this does sort of segue into the third request in the piece for action, which is direction to A-Link to start pre-design work. The report quoted CAO 4723 does identify as an attachment as part of the quote that there's approximately $26,000 quoted for pre-design and design work. So there is enough money in the Lighthouse Reserve to proceed with that, should council wish to direct us to do so. And we'd be more than happy to do so if council wishes. With respect to 2 and 5, these are similar requests. They involve making the donation and status of the Lighthouse Reserve public, potentially having something like a fundraising thermometer that identifies how the fundraising efforts are going in respect of the lighthouse and the reserve. Now, staff would be happy to do this. We'd probably, if council directed us to do so and keep a tally of that, then, you know, we could have something on the website that we update on a monthly basis. So it's not a major reporting burden for staff. For council's information, I also do have the amount of lighthouse donations that have been received to date over and above the reallocation of the dredging reserve money, in case council should, as part of this item, wish that to be disclosed. I would note, however, that the direction for the Lighthouse Reserve was to allocate the reserve for rehabilitation and or ongoing maintenance. So that includes ongoing maintenance right now. So depending on the donations within a period or the council allocation within a period, the amount in the reserve could go up or down if there are ongoing maintenance costs. And with respect to 4, about allocating out of the tax levy for the lighthouse project, I would suggest this item be referred to operating budget discussions because it comes with broader implications. As noted in one of my upcoming reports, CAO 6323, the current reality for a notional tax levy increase is not pleasant at this point. The baseline right now that we're at with Lauren and myself and senior staff is approximately 22%. Now, that does not include any allocation from OSIF and gas tax to bring that down and underwrite key capital projects to reduce the levy impact. If we were to use the entire OSIF and gas tax, we could bring it down to ballpark 12.7. And this is primarily due to the $1 million guarantorship loan transfer levy for the Ojibwa, which accounts for approximately 14.7%. So we'd be about 8.3 otherwise, which is very reasonable given some of the cost pressures in functional areas. The council should just be aware of that. So if council does choose either now or during budget discussions to allocate a certain amount of funds out of the 2024 levy for the lighthouse project, approximately $60,000 is a levy point, just for council's information. So I think that covers the correspondence fairly well, Mr. Mayor. I'll leave it with you and council to discuss. I am available for questions. And I do believe the treasurer is also online as well.
I'm here as well.
Thank you for that report, Thomas. I think there's one more item out there that is in the background. I believe council had asked staff for some further, another report on options for remediation, which I think is pending, probably coming early January or sometime, if I recall correctly.
Be early 2024.
Thank you very much. The reason I bring that into the equation is because I would caution council about committing yourself to something without having all the information in front of you. That's one. Secondly, I do agree with staff recommendations that any allocation to a particular reserve should be discussed during the budget discussions in early January. Those are the two that I want to bring to your attention, just to remind you. I do thank, the contributor for sending this correspondence. Shows that there is some interest. I don't think council has abandoned the project, but I think council needs to do its due diligence to make sure that, you're spending wisely. And, until we know exactly what it is that we're going to do, I don't know whether it's useful to even put a barometer up to decide, or gauge, donations or funding mechanisms. But that's up to council. Those are my thoughts. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll refer this to staff or Lauren or Thomas. I'm just curious, aside from the reserve transfer allocations, where are we at with community donations to date?
Let me just pull up that information for you, Rainey. Okay. Okay, so the dredging reserve transfer to the lighthouse reserve, repurposing of the dredging reserve was 63.6. We do have an overage out of the facilities reserve for the lighthouse of 11,578.72. So that's going to have to come off the balance. Donations to date are $2,485. So that would put a net balance as of today of $54,506.28 in the reserve.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Emerson.
I think the most important thing we have to do is pin down what direction and what the cost is, because it's kind of hard to have a goal if you don't have one. So there's really like 0.5 is a very valid point. There's a lot of valid points in this correspondence, but we have to have we have to pin down a direction and then set a goal and then figure out how we're going to attain. Then you can put your barometer on our new website, and that'd be kind of nice. And if there's a goal to hit, I'm sure people will pull together to raise some money, but to what end, right? We have no idea until we get this next report. So I agree with you. We have to know where we're going before we can plan to get.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I think I'm seeing some nods around the horseshoe on that one. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. My question to that is, what does that look like moving forward? So is that council authorizing A-Link to bring forward
No, the request that council had made of staff was to bring us an alternative rehabilitation strategy. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Thank you. So just wanting to clarify, because we're anticipating that report in early 2024.
Yeah.
So we should see what options are out there
Before we
make
commit.
a decision and move forward. Okay. Thank
And
you.
I do agree with the comments from Councilor Emerson. Once you know what the target is, it's a lot easier to plan for it.
Mhm.
So, and I know that there have been many residents who have expressed certain anxiety of moving forward and getting going. I agree, but going where? So let's know where we're going. Then we can plan to get there.
So a second question to you, Mr. Mayor, would it be possible at this point to pin down a date when we can establish a goal, or like, I don't know, we say early 24, what's that mean? Like,
oh, for the plan coming forward.
Like we should at least have a somewhat fixed deadline for when we're going to discuss and decide which direction we're going to go in. Otherwise, this could drag on for quite some time.
Well, it could drag on for quite some time. You're absolutely correct. What I'm thinking is that we need to sit back and think about what is strategically in the near future. And I think one of the most prominent goals that this council's committed themselves to is trying to retire the Chippewa debt to create capacity so that we can take on infrastructure programs. All right. So that's probably number one. I know the public are concerned about the condition of the lighthouse, and they should be. But I think this council needs to be somewhat prudent in how we approach it. So the staff have told us that they're going to bring us a report in early 24. I think we should wait for it, honestly. I don't know. I understand what you're getting at.
It would be nice to
It'd
say,
be nice
you're
to say,
having a
I'm gonna have a-
report this month, and then we're gonna make a decision on this following month.
Right.
And then we're gonna make a plan and go from there. But at this point, there's no indication of what timeline there is for said report to come forward.
The only indication I have is Q1, yes, first quarter.
Just a quick note, Mr. Mayor, because a lot of this work is done through an outside consultant and I have no insight into what their capacity is to end off this year and to start next year. I'd hazard away from giving a specific deadline. I would be confident that it is Q1, but I don't know if it's going to be January, February, March.
Well, that's fair, but when we get that, can we make that a priority to pin down which direction we're going once we receive the report?
I think we have to.
Okay.
I think we absolutely have
That's
to.
what I'm asking.
Yeah. Lauren, you have something to add?
I would weigh on two things, your worship and the members of council. One being the operating budget meeting, which is the second week of January as our first financial anchor for 24. And the other financial anchor being the second meeting in February where we have all our year-end boilerplate reports, i.e. our unaudited reserve balances, our year-end surplus or deficit, to really give where our financial anchors can begin in 24 if there's money that can be allocated, purposed, or other. I think those should be the first considerations, and once those reports report council, then you have your financial anchors to determine your path forward on top of your engineering or other considerations.
Or pieces of the puzzle.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like maybe a plan for the timeline can develop in short order.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, I agree with you. I don't want this thing sitting out there in perpetuity with no direction. I think, but I think we have to be prudent. Okay. So I'm recommending that this correspondence be received for information. Does council wish to take any other action with it? I'm not sure what there is to take. As has been identified, the reserve for within the infrastructure has already been exhausted for the lighthouse. But you still have, at the end of the day, somewhere around 53,000 once reconciliations take place. So what else do you want to do tonight? Okay.
Well, we receive it. I don't know if there's any wording for prioritize.
That's what I'm saying. And we'll put it on the record and then it's there. All right. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I know point 4, our CAO, Thomas, he made the recommendation that obviously is referred to budgets. But I'm wondering if we can just ensure that this report is included on in the budget package, since if we are going to refer to number 4 there.
It can be, but it definitely will be part of the budget.
Yeah, as long as, yeah, absolutely. Just as long as those comments are included, that'd be great.
I concur.
Thomas has a comment.
Mr. Mayor, just a quick comment through you to council that the reason why we recommend it coming back to the operational budget meeting is I think we're all on the same page that rehabilitation in some form will have to occur with the lighthouse because it is a municipal structure and we do carry liability if it should fail despite the stabilization. We just don't know what that looks like. So I understand that is, what council is interested in, having some options. Referring back to report CAO 4723 and the quote from A-Link, they did note that there were some structural components, some general site work, contract administration, and all of that alone comes to approximately $750,000, or yeah, $750,000. So regardless of what happens, there's going to have to be additional either allocation or additional fundraising in some capacity. We just don't know what that ceiling is. So it's prudent from staff's perspective to ensure that it's considered within the operating budget prior to any further information being provided to council, because there are going to be those cost implications regardless.
All right, so the advice then from senior staff is what I think the deputy mayor is looking for is, do you recommend that this particular correspondence be referred to the budget? We're already well aware of what the reports in the past are. Is there any is there a benefit of having this forwarded to the budget? We already know what we're after. Kind of.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
I just think if you put that in there, it's formalizing the intention, right? I agree with you.
All right, somebody put a motion on the floor, please. Mover and seconder. So that would be to, that the correspondence from Suzanne Schultzhauser regarding a request for action, Lighthouse Reserve funds be received for information, and that the correspondence.
That, is it just number 4 or all correspondence?
4 and 5.
Forward it all.
Okay, so I can just say that the correspondence be referred to the 2024 operating budget deliberations.
All right, so mover and seconder, please. Counselor Emerson, Deputy Mayor Weisler. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item B, Grand River Conservation Authority regarding the Lake Erie Region Source Protection Committee municipal member nomination. Thomas, you're taking this one on?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'll just speak to it very briefly. So the Lake Erie Region Source Water Protection Committee oversees a general area covering the geographical areas of Elgin, Middlesex, St. Thomas, and London. The correspondence notes that Lloyd Perrin was the previous appointee representing Group 7 from Central Elgin. Mr. Perrin has since retired from his position, so this position has to be backfilled. Correspondence is recommending Alex Piggott, Manager of Environmental Services, take over as the representative. Staff are supportive of this appointment, and the recommendation reflects that. Mr. Mayor, will leave it with you for deliberation between you and council, and I'm available if there are any questions.
Thank you for that. Does anyone have any concerns? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question. I don't think I've ever seen a report that refers to this. I'm wondering, could you just give me a quick synopsis of what this committee actually does?
All right, at LPRCA, you are the source water protection, authority for places such as the Richmond Water.
Correct.
All right, this is same, only on a larger basis.
Okay. Thank you for that. That
Okay.
helps me. Okay.
Well, just to simplify it, that's exactly what it is.
Okay.
This came about years ago, and I recall when Mr. Perrin was appointed as our representative in the area, water, wastewater specialist, very knowledgeable. And I take the recommendation from Central Elgin that this is the successor, would all equally be as knowledgeable to do it. If council's, willing to support it. Any other questions, concerns? Okay, I'm seeing none. The motion would read correspondence from the Grand River Conservation Authority regarding the Lake Erie Region Source Protection Committee municipal member nomination be received for information. And that council for the municipality of Bayham supports the nomination of Alex Piggott, Manager of Environmental Services at the municipality of Central Elgin, as municipal representative for Group 7 on the Lake Erie Region Source Protection Committee. Anyone willing to move? Deputy Mayor Weisler? Do we have a seconder? Councilor Emerson? All in favor? That's great. Thank you. Item C, Long Point Region Conservation Authority regarding the 2024 draft budget.
Just a quick comment on this one, Mr. Mayor, just a quick comment. So similar to correspondence that's received around this time of the year from the LPRCA, advising municipal partners of what the levy and rate impacts are liable to be for the upcoming year. Correspondence from Long Point Region identifies that for 2024, the overall proposed increase on the levy is approximately 3.8%. This is down from 6.82 from last year. And the general levy impact is approximately 2.21%. So with respect to that, they have enclosed their draft consolidated operating budgets and summaries and the outline of the proposed levy. And they're requesting comment back, if any, no later than noon of next Thursday. So if there are any comments that council wishes to provide in support of their request, we'd be happy to send that in. And I will leave it with you for deliberations with council. The treasurer and I are available for any questions.
All right, thank you for that. I don't want to put our deputy mayor on the spot, but you are our LPRCA representative. Do you have any comments you wish to make regarding Long Point's budget?
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I do not at this time. It was a very robust discussion. Yeah. There was, yes, it was a very good meeting. But yeah, it's unfortunate. Nobody wants to see increases, but this is the reality. But unless there's specific questions, I really don't have any comments at this time.
No, it is interesting when you go to page 160 of the agenda and you're looking at a comparator of the municipalities and the levy across. It is interesting to note on a per capita basis across the watershed. Of course, Bayham is entirely encapsulated within the LPRCA watershed. Our per capita cost is perhaps the lowest, which doesn't make it any less painful, but still, it is reflected there. And I see the per capita increase. They're talking about 87 cents per capita.
Pros. Just like to voice a little bit of an opinion, I guess.
Yep.
21 actual was 4.788 million, and 24 proposed total expenditures on page 159 is 6.56. That's almost $2 million in 3 years.
Yep. You're correct.
Wow. I'd like to see another business that can afford that kind of increases.
No, I appreciate that. It is interesting when you think about the reliance of LPRCA on tax levy dollars. You know, it's 36, 37% of their total budget is reliant on levy. Some CAs, they're much more totally reliant on levies from their municipal partners. So, yeah, the cost of business keeps going up. Cost of labor, cost of fuel, cost of equipment, cost of land. It's all going up. I think in some respects we are a little more fortunate in this watershed. They do have other revenue sources to draw on. Just throwing that out there. But yes, you're absolutely correct. Your observations are right on. Councillor Prose.
So they're asking for 3.8%. What if we say no?
I'm not sure we have a lot of choice. To be honest with you.
So why is this in front of us then, I guess?
It's for information.
Thank you very much.
You're
I
absolutely correct.
receive for information.
Well, that's exactly what it is. Would you like to move that
No, I
motion
did.
that the correspondence from Long Point be received for information? Moved by Councillor Froze. Does anyone have any further questions before I seek a second? But you're absolutely correct. Okay. Anyone willing to second? Okay, Councillor Chilcott will second that. All in favor? That's carried. 13.2, reports to council, report TR 1723 by Lauren James Treasurer regarding revised cemetery bylaws and rates and fees. Lauren, are you still with us?
I'm here, your worship.
Okay.
Just give me a second. And to answer Councillor Fro's previous comment, there's nothing we can do to dispute the LPRCA budget. I've had that request twice since I've been the treasurer. but it is a good question. So before you tonight is a staff report that come out from the Joint Cemetery Board meeting. Basically, in essence, these are modifications and requests from the Joint Cemetery Board on updating both our cemetery control bylaw and our cemetery contract bylaw. Some new modified language and some updated rates and fees. Once council endorses this, the bylaw is proposed before you, and it'll go off to the BAO for their approval and then be enforced.
All right, thank you, Lauren, for that. Does anyone have any questions? Lauren, one question for you is that if you go back and take a look at some of the recommendations coming forward from the board, there was a recommendation for a guarantee of the return. Let's see if I can get my eyes on that again. Refer to the budget. Good enough.
The investment guarantee, your worship? Yeah, so I would leave that to our budget deliberations in 24. Right now, the GICs that all the cemetery board care and maintenance have moved over to is going to be 5.6 to 5.9. So that small top up should be an item of consideration on the cemetery operating budget under our sundry line.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions or concerns? Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Just one quick clarification on it. Under the new items where it's refreshment vehicle license, that's an addition. I'm assuming that's for food trucks. Am I just wanting to make sure I'm thinking along the right?
Wrong.
Through the mayor, deputy worship, that's the rates and
Sorry.
fees. That's the next report.
I'm already ahead of the game. My apologies.
It's okay,
I'm
deputy
sorry.
mayor.
This
I know,
one's
I know cemetery stuff can be boring. I know.
I'm so sorry. My apologies.
Okay.
Well,
It's
if we
okay.
jumped ahead, we'd be done for food trucks.
I'm not gonna need
Okay.
that.
I couldn't figure out why we were talking about one thing and not the other. I had my reports mixed up. My apologies.
That's all right. Any other questions regarding the cemetery bylaws,
Cemetery.
rates and fees?
Jeez.
All right. All right, I will read the motion. The staff report TR 1723 regarding the revised cemetery bylaws and rates and fees be received for information. And that council approved the changes to the cemetery bylaws numbers 2015-116 and 2016-057. And that the appropriate bylaws be brought forward for council's consideration. And that staff be directed to forward the revised bylaws to the Bereavement Authority of Ontario for acceptance. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Chilcott, seconded by Councillor Prose. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you.
Thank you, worship.
Brings us to item B, report CL 1423 by Megan Elliott, clerk, regarding the update to municipal rates and fees. This is the one where you want.
This is the one.
Yes. Okay, Megan.
Thank you, your worship. Through you to council. We establish what we charge for our services, applications, permits, etc. through rates and fees bylaw. BAM's current rates and fees bylaw is from 2019, and so there is a need for updating a lot of these items. The report tonight is outlined for us to discuss those items. The way that we've laid it out in the report is more for the attachments to go through to see what is noted as no change, remove, additions, increases, or already increased. If council recalls at the August 17th meeting, you received a report based on planning and building fees. And so there's a number of fees that have already been approved, but just not formally adopted yet. So that would be brought forward when we put all this together. So in the attachments, attachment 1 called the master is essentially all departments except for rental fees and building fees. Rental fees are on attachment 2, just because it's a little bit of a different structure to include the column of HST. And then the building fees are separate on 3 and 4 because they were a little bit difficult to compare from one to the other because the thresholds of sizes and whatnot all changed. So it was just easier to put them on 2 papers for you. So here tonight, I would like you to go through what has been noted for changes. If there's anything sticking out to you that you don't find appropriate or need further information on. The plan would be after tonight, if happy with all that's proposed or whatever to change, we would bring back the bylaw at the December 21st meeting, which would include the body of the bylaw that will include general provisions to further expand information like when it says cost recovery, what does that mean? What does deposits mean? Including language to automatically increase based on CPI or construction values, that sort of thing. The other thing to note within the current bylaw body, there's a lot of, I won't say a lot, but there's language that talks about the provisions of when somebody's renting the SCC or ball diamonds. We think at this point, if we're updating it all, that should be broken out into a separate policy. So at that time, at December 21st, the plan would be take that out of rates and fees, put it into a separate policy, present the 2 to you. And then the new rates and fees would be in effect for January 1, 2024. Updating rates and fees isn't actually one of the items that needs official notice under the municipal act or our notice bylaw, but we did want to structure it this way so that here is a little bit of a heads up at this meeting, and then we can pass it on the 21st, not in effect until January 1st. So with that, I will leave it with you for if there's anything you want to specifically point out from the attachments.
All right, thank you for that, Megan. Now, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Just, yeah, thank you, Megan. Sorry, I lost it now. So, yeah, I'm just looking, the refreshment vehicle license, which is new, will that be effective once this is passed? What about existing? Will they be grandfathered and no fee, or will they have to pay a fee moving forward?
So through you, your worship, it is a little bit misleading to say new. It is new to the rates and fees schedule, but this existing price is in the refreshment vehicle bylaw. So I should have touched on that. I apologize. That part of this review as well is pulling in other costs that are laid elsewhere so that it's all in one spot. And I say that, but at the same time, there's items that should be removed from here, such as the water and sewer rates and fees, because that's done through different channels. And yes, it's spoken to in a different bylaw, but it's not totally appropriate to be in our rates and fees bylaw to have it in multiple spots. So that's why later on too, that's why it's noted to be removed for those sort of things. And then things like refreshment vehicle license, kennel licenses, that kind of stuff, that's actually already existing in other bylaws that we're just trying to capture in one spot.
Okay, just to add a little further to that, Megan, just to flesh it out. I think what the deputy mayor might be getting at too as well is, are we going to charge a vehicle, or the intention to charge a licensing fee to a refreshment vehicle that's in for a weekend festival? Or is the intention that this is a chip truck, whatever you wish, taco stand that's in for the season?
So the current refreshment vehicle bylaw does speak to those different scenarios. So if it is someone looking to have a license to operate throughout the year, they would require a license. Right now, the language in that about special events says if it's within a municipally approved event, they don't need a license fee. They still have to go through all the inspections and whatnot. And with this topic specifically, staff are bringing back this bylaw for further discussion with council for some of the parameters, so.
Just to add a little history to it, when this came up years ago, the argument was that, to put a mobile, chip truck, shall we call it, in competition with established residents, or excuse me, established, commercial entities that are already serving, or restaurants, they were operating at a competitive advantage, as the restaurant was actually paying water and sewer fees, and these are not. This was a structure just to try to even the keel those days. So if it's a case that the language of the old bylaw is going to move it forward, or the intention that it's not going to require, as I say, a vendor for moving in for one day required a license, that's a little wondrous. If it's seasonal, yeah, sure. Because you're competing with our established residents.
And through your worship, all that will be fully discussed.
Yep.
Later on.
So I was just fleshing that one out. Is there any other than, does that answer?
Yes, yeah, it does. I do have a supplementary.
Okay.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Some of these fees have increased 50% or have doubled in cost. I'm just curious as to how you came about the fee structure. Is this competitive to other rates and fees in other municipalities? Are we getting in line with those ones, or, because some of these are, I find to be quite expensive. So just curious.
Through your worship to council, yes, staff collaboratively worked together to look at where we were at and where we need to be. We are going with the focus of cost recovery. So a lot of these items build in some additional staff time or materials or anything of that needed to get us to cost recovery. The reason that the increases seem so significant is also because it hasn't been updated since 2019. So that's another provision that we're going to be putting in the body of the bylaw, or just for general nature, is that this comes to council every year.
Okay. Additional questions? Yep. Deputy
Thank you
Mayor?
through you, Mr. Mayor. So you said we will be able to have a robust discussion about some of this coming up, correct? We're just receiving this for information, and
We would prefer the conversation to be here so
Okay.
that we have direction of what to include for December 21st,
okay.
because we would like to pass that then to be in effect for January 1st.
Yes.
Thank you, supplementary, Mr. Mayor. Then with that, I do have a couple of questions, clarification questions, then if I could. Under fire services, there's a new one that says fireworks review application and inspection. I'm just curious as to what that means.
We do have the fire chief here. If he has any further comments, I'll let him speak to it.
There are occasions when we do have a fireworks application that comes forward. There is a requirement for it to review. I do a site visit at the same time to make sure that it's safe. I also have to make sure that their documents are in order, including their liability and their insurance, so that the municipality itself is covered. Therefore.
Okay, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. So just to clarify, this is in reference to to larger events. This isn't just like a backyard setting off fireworks when we're allowed.
To your worship, that is correct.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you very much.
Another one?
Yes, I do. Sorry. Yes. So, under the public works section, there's new rates being imposed for MVC response, other emergencies response, and nuisance calls and debris on road. Just wanting to clarify. So if I call and say there's a dead animal on the road, am I being charged for that? I'm just wanting to understand, it's saying its current MTO rate is going to be the new rates and fees, so I just curious as to how that, or is that something that's happening internally that's reporting purposes? No, so there's gonna be a fee when I call the municipality for debris, or it's,
Nuisance calls,
thank you.
please.
believe the intent is that if we find the person that is responsible for it, then there's gonna be a fees for that person. Not for the individual calling in, because we need to clean it up in the first place. But if we do find the people responsible, somebody that's driven into taking down a sign, somebody that's on a highway involved in an accident, there's a fee because that is a cost to the municipality, to your worship.
Thank you for that. Counselor Chilcott.
Yep. So technically it's a fine, not a fee.
Through your worship, I was just pulling up my original spreadsheet that had more comments involved. Under that item, the note says OPP callouts or maybe bylaw. So if it involves other channels, I'm assuming.
Anything additional? Big list to go through.
Here, Mr. Mayor, can we add a vexatious fee to bylaw enforcement? If it's unfounded? Because we are wasting the person's time.
Interesting consideration.
Define vexation.
Yeah, that gets right down to it.
Because it's nothing really going on except you just want to harass people.
Yeah. I think we need a or a broader policy discussion on that one. Absolutely. Certainly do.
And on one other point, if we're gonna, I don't really mean to offend, but the most common complaints I have is speediness of building permit complaints. I don't think anybody minds the increase in fees as long as there's an expectation of service. And that, I think, needs to be addressed.
Yep. Thank you for those comments as well. All right. I think the spirit of these particular fees is to capture the order compliance in alignment with the benefits principle. Those who are benefiting from pay for it rather than tax levy pay. That's what it's about. So any other fee here that someone's noting that raising concerns? How come we're removing a trailer park license? Or the civil marriage
That's another one,
or rehearsal fee? I didn't even know we had a rehearsal fee.
We no longer issue trailer park licenses. And the marriage ceremony rehearsals, we no longer do that either.
That's the purview of the court. That's not you be doing that.
There is a lot of information from the past, but we don't issue the licenses. And then there was delegated authority, and then there wasn't. So.
Okay. All right, again, another call for any comments on any of these fees. Councilor Chilcott.
Thank you. Megan, can you tell me again what you said about moving the rental fees for the halls and that elsewhere?
Through your worship, just that's outlined on attachment 2, just because with the HSD column, it's nice to spell it out like that for the people and for us. So just for formatting purposes, it was on a separate tab. But further to note, we did talk with Stratfordville Hall Foundation to discuss these increases and formally include ball diamonds costs for either if they're a league or casual. And then for pavilions, to change the name so that it's specified that it's just the Stratfordville Park Pavilion, because we don't currently formally rent out the other pavilions. That might be something that we want to look into in the future, but would be a further discussion with the SHF or staff and whatnot. So,
Councillor Chilcott.
Still along that line, why is it only one pavilion is rented? Like, shouldn't it be the same across the board? If there's a pavilion available, it should be available, shouldn't be rented.
I believe that's tied to the agreement with SHF and just what is provided from the service at this location. And then with the other pavilions, it just doesn't fall under that hub at the moment.
I just feel that if Corinne's Pavilion is free, Stratfordville only has one pavilion, it should be free as well.
Well, people can use it for free. It just, we have that extra layer for this pavilion that if you want to formally book it.
And same with the rentals, I think. From experience, we've been told they're too high to start with, and now we're gonna raise them more
The rental on the pavilions?
on the hall itself.
Megan, this was done in consultation with the SHF. I assume that a canvas of the local halls in the area has been done. Are these rates competitive with our local, the halls within the immediate area? Malahide Place, for example,
I know Malahide has different pricing than we do, but we're not Malahide.
I understand that. I asked if we're competitive.
Yeah.
Lauren, what have you got?
So to answer, through your worship, to answer Council Chilcott's comments on the hall rental fees, two things in consideration. They are comparable to our neighbors of comparable size. However, you have to take in consideration that we have additional utilities, overhead, cleaning, and other compliance costs. They cannot be ran on a net loss, or else it's going to be borne further by the tax levy.
So the other community centers don't have cleaning and water and
Those costs of cleaning after an event have to be incorporated in the rental fee, or else you're subsidizing every one of those events.
Okay, the question I think I need to go back to, staff did consult with our current administrators of the hall, the SHF. They were amenable to these fees.
That's correct. They propose them.
They proposed these fees. Okay.
Councilor Rose. Just a couple of questions under new bylaw enforcement. Lot maintenance extension fee, lot maintenance final notice fee, and then bylaw enforcement order. Just a bit of an explanation on what those three are, because they're all new, right?
What page is that one on? On the master? All right, thank you.
Let's see if I have some notes on that one. One moment. Your worship, from the original staff notes on that. For the notes, I just have it noting staff time and vehicle. So again, it's probably just for cost recovery mechanisms. I'm not sure if Thomas is able to expand on what those items are at all.
Through you, Mr. Mayor to Council, I don't have that information in front of me. We'd have to get that from the bylaw enforcement officer. I believe he's at Malahide tonight, so we'd have to bring it back to council on the 21st.
Okay, I'm looking at this, and if I understand, if it's a lot maintenance issue and, asking for an extension, you're looking to charge them $30. If it's a final notice that's gone that far, you're looking to charge them another $100. And if they are issued an order, another $100. Okay, now, so in order to apply for a noise bylaw exemption, you're looking for $100? That seems a little expensive. Yeah. Yeah.
Through your worship, the one that was existing there, the bylaw exemption request at $50, that was in the same area as like a tax certificate request, zoning certificate request, etc. And those ones were increased to 75. So possibly if council wishes that maybe those two exemption requests can be to 75 to be consistent with the other category.
All right, so, all right, for an exemption request, it currently has a fee of $50. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
All right. What's council think? Keep it or
Reduce it.
reduce it?
Yeah, reduce it.
All right, where do you want to go to?
Consistent, 75.
Propose it.
Hmm.
75? Leave it at 50?
Leave it at 50.
All right. Okay, so that's the bylaw exemption request. So what's the difference between a bylaw exemption request and a noise exemption?
Through your worship, I inquired the same thing. I don't know if it has different channels or what, but it was requested to keep it separate from the bylaw officer.
Well, a noise exemption would be a party that wants to go on beyond 11 o'clock.
Right.
A community event. Yeah, okay.
I don't think they go past 11, but I think there's a decibel limit that they're asking to be over. All right. That may be the difference, 11 o'clock or total decibels between the two.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. With the new bylaw piece there, the zoning enforcement compliance date extension application fee. Interestingly, it says $100 per month. I don't understand that. So if I'm applying for an extension of 3 months, I have to pay $300? And is that consistent with other rates and fees? That just seems a bit excessive to me.
I wish Marg was in the room because there is a certain compliance date for
Right.
covenants within a zoning or rezoning.
Correct.
And if they don't, I believe this is, that if you don't meet them. But again, I wish Marg was here to, talk to that. Unless Thomas, you can speak to that one. It's page 140 or 246, new bylaw enforcement, zoning enforcement compliance date extension and application fee.
Right, so I'll have to confirm this with Mr. Miller. My understanding is that if there's a zoning non-compliance that we issue a letter under the zoning bylaw enforcement policy, we generally give, a period of time that they have to identify to the municipality how they're going to proceed with the non-compliance. So are they going to proceed with, rezoning, or are they going to cease the use? My understanding is that, say we give them a month to provide us with that information. If they want an extra month to tell us how they want to proceed, then that's essentially what that fee entails, because it's over and above what is outlined as reasonable through bylaw enforcement. Now, if they identify, within the 4 weeks that, hey, we're going to cease the use, we just need some time to wrap things up, and they give us a timeline, My understanding is that no fee would apply because they've already identified to us how they want to approach the non-compliance issue. The fee only applies if they want an extension regarding how to advise us, what path they want to take. We can confirm that with the bylaw enforcement officer, but that's my understanding.
Through you. So does that mean if somebody decides to get their zoning fixed and it takes 6 months to get
No.
the zoning changed, then it's $600? Is that?
No, I think I
That's
think,
the way I understood it.
no, I think what Thomas is just saying that if the applicant comes forward and advises, the municipality how they're going to fix their non-compliance issue, say within the 30 days when they're given notice, then that's not a problem. But it's if they want more time after that 30 days, that's when the fee kicks in. I think it's an inducement to encourage people to comply. So, a zoning application can take up to 6 months or so, but if you're gonna tell us how to do it within the first 30 days, I don't think there's an issue. Did I get that wrong, Thomas?
No, Mr. Mayor, you're correct. So for illustration purposes, if we provide somebody with notice that they have until January 31st to advise us how they want to proceed with the non-compliance, and they let us know on the 30th that they're going to proceed with the rezoning, we recognize that rezoning is going to take, 4 to 6 months, depending on how expedient they are. As long as they continue to work with the municipality, there's no fee. But if they come back and they say, we need an extension of 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks to render a decision, then we'd ask for a fee to review that because it's outside of the base request that we will be consistent with enforcing. Just a quick note for council, just in considering all of these fees, council has approved in the strat plan to investigate moving various services that we provide to cost recovery. So that's why we've included a number of these fees, because otherwise they are done gratis out of our own staff resources, and recognizing that we do have some cost pressures and have been internally trying to determine ways to recover what costs we can within reason. That's why a number of the fees are the way they are, and they've been proposed internally by staff based upon their understanding of what staff time and or capital time, whether it's a vehicle or what have you, would go into providing some of these services.
Councillor Chilcott.
So I just want to make sure I have this right. So basically you give me 30 days to make a decision. And if I ask for another 30 days to make my decision, that's when I get charged $100. But if I make it in the 30 days and it takes 6 months to fix it, I get charged nothing.
Right.
That's correct.
Nothing extra.
That's correct, because they've advised us within the 30 days, 4 weeks, 30 days, that they are going to work with us. And as long as they continue to expediently work to push the zoning process along, then there's no issue.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that clear? Yeah, Councillor Pros?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would be really curious to see, and I know Councillor Chilcott, we are not Malahide, but some neighboring municipalities, what the wording is in their bylaws and also their fees. I'd be kind of curious to see that. Okay.
Well, given the fact that BAM's bylaw is providing service in Malahide, and I would expect that there'll be similar structures.
And through your worship to council, currently right now in the 2019 rates and fees bylaw, like of ours, there is a section under the general provisions for bylaw enforcement that says activities performed pertaining to bylaw enforcement infractions are invoiced at full cost recovery plus 25% administration fee. So we right now have some sort of mechanisms to some of these aspects. We're just trying to make it, streamline it a little bit.
More transparent. Okay, thank you for that. Anything else? Kind of numbing going through these things.
But in that, like if someone makes a bylaw complaint, it's unfounded, they're looking for cost recovery, not going to the right person for the cost recovery. Right? This is the whole point. It's trying to raise it.
This is the point you were trying to raise. You're absolutely right. You were looking for some kind of a nuisance,
Well, no, but if you're doing stuff just because you feel like doing it. You know, like that person, then we're saying that there's costs, we're trying to recover the cost, so why aren't we trying to recover the cost when people waste stuff?
again, we need to have a more fulsome policy discussion on that, for sure, what we can and can't do. I understand. Deputy,
Thank you
Mayor.
very much, through you, Mr. Mayor. So this is coming back again next meeting for us to review and approve.
That's correct, with the full body of the bylaw with everything put together.
Thank you very much.
You'll get to read twice as much.
Right?
Now, this was a summarized version just to outline the changes proposed. Okay.
Just a comment then.
Yep.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. No, and I appreciate the efforts of staff because it really helped with the chart with the color coding and the changes. So I do appreciate that. It was a lengthy read, but it was very well done. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you. I was trying to make it easy for council and residents to see what was comparable.
okay. Anything else? Keep in mind that I do believe the intention, as you stated, Madam Clerk, is that this fee structure will be brought back on a more regular basis for council review.
That's correct.
Lauren.
I'd also remind council, and the clerk can clarify this, this is the first full-blown revision for 2 or 3 years. So this was inflation, cost pressures, cost recovery, and also bringing cost of compliance in order. And one of the biggest feedbacks that we have annually on our financials and FIR is the inefficient amount of sundry or other rates and fees that we charge. And that does impact us whenever we're putting forward provincial or federal grants on how our rates and fees are structured by department and overall of the revenues derived by the municipality.
Thank you for that. Any more comments, questions?
Your worship, I have a slight amendment here if you want me to read it out.
It's all yours.
And to confirm, well, I'll read it out. Let's see. So that report CL 1423 regarding update to municipal rates and fees be received for information, and that the updated rates and fees be approved with the following amendments: bylaw exemption and noise exemption request to 75 or 50.
No change.
No change. That'd be 50.
50, and that the appropriate bylaw be brought forward for council's consideration, and that a facility rental policy be presented to council for consideration.
Question or
Yeah,
Councilor
just like
Chilcott?
a question on the noise bylaw fee, were we leaving that at 100 or was it being at 50 as well?
50. I put bylaw exemption and noise exemption request to be 50.
Okay. Okay. Mover and seconder, please. Councilor Emerson will move. Who's willing to second? Councilor Froze. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Report CL 1523 by Megan Elliott, clerk, regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion plan.
Thank you, your worship, again to council. Elgin County and the local municipal partners have developed a joint diversity, equity, and inclusion plan. Although there is no specific legislation that requires municipalities to have a DEI plan, it does account for other requirements under the AODA. Elgin County has already approved the plan, and they're looking for each of the local municipal partners to approve it as well. So it is attached here to the report, and I'm here for any questions.
Thank you for that, quick summary.
Yes.
As the clerk has indicated, it's attached. There's a lot of material in it. Does anyone have any concerns or questions? Deputy Mayor Weiser?
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Just one quick question in regards to land acknowledgement and the expectation at meetings. Is the expectation that we are doing land acknowledgements prior to every meeting, or is that at the discretion of the council?
My recollection is there is no particular policy requiring a land acknowledgement. I think, oftentimes at the beginning of a term, we probably should. We don't. Different councils do. And it depends on your procedural bylaw, and what you want to do. If I interpret that correctly, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Your Worship.
Supplementary. So so it would be part of our procedural bylaws if we wish to, for example, some councils will sing "O Canada" prior to a meeting starting. And then there's a land acknowledgement when the meeting starts. So that would all have to be, if that is something that our council wanted to adopt, that would have to be proposed and then added to the procedural bylaw.
My understanding, yes.
And when that's done, is that considered for a full term? Or is that a procedure that's now initiated moving forward forever until it changes?
That would be my interpretation.
Okay.
It depends upon whether the limits were put on a particular bylaw in the procedure, or whether this was something that was open for council to change whenever they wished. The procedural bylaws are meant to be guiding documents.
Right.
How you will act, not only within chambers, but outside as well, and whatever ceremonies you wish to accommodate. It's just that I am recalling from several terms ago that there were some discussions around this particular policy, like land acknowledgement, but even proclamations. Bayham doesn't do proclamations. That was something that was precluded from the procedural bylaw. Yeah.
We happen to come up with an acknowledgement, who is going to approve it?
That's a very good point.
Yes.
Because we may make an improper acknowledgement.
I know I would be seeking some expert advice on that, I would think.
So maybe we should seek that before it's implemented, so that we have one ready in case that it's required. Because it might take 3 months to get approval from whatever approval body. You know, like, it's coming, so you might as well prepare.
Is it?
I think it is, actually.
Madam Clerk.
And through your worship to council, in a previous municipality that I worked in, we were investigating this process and trying to come up with our own acknowledgement. And when we reached out to the local Indigenous community to get their feedback or quote unquote approvals, the messaging that they provided to us was they want us to come up with the wording to show that it's our acknowledgement and to appreciate it. So I agree that there's probably, you want to make sure that you don't
It just gotta be a yay, nay from somebody, like we're writing it, but someone has to say, yeah, that's good.
and I'm not totally sure, just that one piece that I thought that was interesting when we did approach a group, they said, we want you to come up with the wording and then speak from your intentions kind of thing, so. And then just to further the mayor's point for the procedural bylaw, yeah, it could even be something included in a section about how we lay out our agendas right now. It's call to order, so it could be call to order and land acknowledgement or that sort of thing.
Okay, any other observations, questions, clarifications? Okay. The motion would read the report CL 1523 regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion plan be received for information, and that the council, the corporation, and municipality of Bayham adopts the diversity, equity, and inclusion plan as presented. Mover and seconder. Councillor Emerson. And Councillor Chilcott will second. All in favor? Thank you. Report CAO 6123 by Thomas Slater, CAO Clerk, regarding amendment to site plan agreement, Lighthouse Gospel Church, SBA 0123. Thomas, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So one of these good news stories for site plan, we added an amendment application from Lighthouse Gospel Church at 59 Victoria Street. We received the application in June. The application was deemed complete November the 9th. The existing site plan agreement for this file was authorized by bylaw 2020 or 2022-002. It's agreement number 0778 in the municipality's files. The amendment came forward from Lighthouse Gospel seeking an expansion of the existing main building. They're seeking an approximately 307 meter one-story addition to have 4 meeting rooms and 4 washrooms. The lot grading and drainage plan has been updated and stamped and has been since approved by the municipality for agreement inclusion. So when this report was drafted, we had the agreement out for review with Lighthouse Gospel, and it had been signed by the municipality. Since that time, Lighthouse Gospel representatives have signed the agreement. So the amending agreement is in force and effect. And as it is a site plan, delegated authority is the CAO for approval. This report is provided for information purposes. And Mr. Mayor, I'll leave it with you.
All right, thank you very much for that. Does anyone have any questions, concerns? It's already a done deal. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, just one question, and it's wonderful. It's a great, good news story. My question regards parking. I'm just curious as to the impacts of the addition to the existing parking lot.
One second, bear with me. I'm going to see if I can pull up a signed copy of the agreement.
Councilor Prose.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do believe they have a large parking lot across the street.
They do. And it's full.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, just a supplementary, I am well aware of that. I just also know that oftentimes they're parked on the section, the grassy section between the sidewalk and the road. And I'm just wondering if that was a discussion during this process.
I can confirm this with Marg, but it was not brought up during the site plan review regarding additional parking. They do have a substantial parking lot on site, and they do have adjacent parking, as Councillor Prose has noted as well. So based upon the size of the expansion, it wasn't that they had to provide any additional parking to meet the requirements of zoning.
Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions? Okay. The motion reads that report CAO 6123 regarding amendment to site plan agreement, Lighthouse Gospel Church, 59 Victoria Street, Port Burwell. Application number SPA 0123 be received for information. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Prose and Councillor Emerson will second. All in favor? Carried. Item E, report CAO 6223 by Thomas Sayer, CAO, regarding enabling accessibility fund grant award and agreement authorization. Thomas, please.
You're
Apologies, I muted myself. So this is a good news piece. We had applied for a enabling accessibility fund grant last year, and we were advised on March 7th that the grant application would not be proceeding further in the process. However, we have since been advised that funding has been freed up for our project, and the ESDC is looking to fund it in full. The manager of public works and I have had correspondence back and forth with a project manager under the ESDC. So they have confirmed $49,606 for this project. This is important funding because it will cover the entire levy supported budget for this project, which will lower the overall tax levy impact in the 2024 operating budget. Based upon some preliminary discussions with the manager of public works, it appears that design and construction for this project may be closer to $80,000. So recognizing that this item was coming forward to council for award and agreement authorization, we thought it would be prudent to request that FA06, which is the Port Burwell Library washroom, the reserve allocation of 20 grand be repurposed to FA07 in the capital budget, which is the Marine Museum expansion, to cover this projected overage. And the only other component that I just wish to bring to council's direction or attention is that the agreement is in front of council in respect of the Employment and Social Development Canada, and we'd be looking for authorization for the CAO and mayor to sign such an agreement authorized by bylaw, so we can remit that to the organization and receive our funding. The funding would come as a one-time payment upfront and the full amount, and then we'd be able to move forward with the project in 2024. So, Mr. Mayor, I will leave it with you and council to discuss. But again, this is a good news story that we didn't think was going to come for this particular project, that will help us offset some of those levy-based costs.
All right, thank you very much for that, and it's a good news story. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Motion reads: a report CAO 6223 regarding the Enabling Accessibility Fund grant award and agreement authorization be received for information, and that the Chief Administrative Officer and Mayor be directed to execute an agreement with His Majesty, the King and Right of Canada, as represented by the Minister of Employment and Social Development in respect of the Enabling Accessibility Grant awarded for the Marine Museum accessibility improvements, and that the appropriate authorizing bylaw be brought forward for council's consideration, and that capital item FA06 be removed from the approved in principle 2024-2033 capital budget, and that the 20,000 in funding identified for capital item FA06 reallocated to capital item FA07. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Chilcott and Councillor Emerson will second. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Report CAO 6323 by Thomas Thayer, CAO, regarding the Stratford Community Center expansion timeline, update, and financial impacts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report is being provided as a sort of a major projects update in respect of the grant-supported expansion at the Stratfordville Community Center. As council will recall, in March and April of this year, council received a pair of staff reports discussing some updated costing for the project. Ultimately chose to de-scope a few items and directed an application be made to the Community Culture and Recreation Program for consideration of the identified reduction in scope. So we submitted that application to ISIP in late April or mid-April. They followed up in June requesting clarification of a couple items. We since provided that clarification. And since that time, neither the treasurer or myself have received any correspondence back in respect to the scope reduction. Clearly, this impacts our timelines. We're hopeful to be able to tender and commence construction in 2023. Clearly, that will not happen. So this report is brought forward to identify some of the considerations that are in play regarding cost and timeline implications and tendering. We are hopeful that we should hear some point soon from ISIP regarding the scope reduction, and are hopeful that we can tender and commence construction in and around April of 2024. That's going to require us to go to tender, should council wish us to do so. I want to bring it to council's attention that section 8.12 of our procurement policy requires that a tender be awarded to the lowest compliant bidder. So there is a risk that exists in a tender process, because despite reasonable cost estimates, the bid award could be lower or higher than the estimate, which is why it is prudent to have an accurate estimate reasonably close to the procurement period to limit upside risk. And council was also very interested in not doing any construction during the winter season to avoid any construction premium or excavation work in frozen ground. So council is aware that the de-scoped cost was approximately $2.27 million, plus applicable HST. And we'd be required under the ISEP program to consider a contingency that may or may not be used. Contingencies are our best practice in this regard. Council was advised through report CAO 2023 that at the time staff were confident the total cost of the project was able to be contained and funded using various municipal mechanisms, including the facilities reserve, multi-year library transfers, Parks and Playground Reserve, 2024 capital, and there were a few other reserves and options that remained for council at the time, including the contingency reserve, the road construction reserve, and strategic use of the OSIF and gas tax reserve funds to offset some of the levy impact from capital projects and be able to utilize some of that capacity elsewhere. Now, since that time, I just would note that the OSIF and gas tax, while feasible, is really considered like a last option for immediate municipal funding, as we generally hold this reserve fund for emergent or priority matters dealing primarily with core infrastructure, debt, or to underwrite a portion of the annual municipal notional levy increase to offset tax impacts to residents. Based upon more recent discussions with A-Link and industry professionals, they're noting that the upside risk on the estimate provided may be as much as 30%. They do also note that it could be as much as 8% less than estimate as well, but clearly there's more upside risk than there is downside risk, and that has to be considered when ultimately tendering the project. 30% of the re-estimate is approximately an additional $681,000 before tax and contingency. And this will likely be exacerbated by the announcement of the PowerCo electric battery plant coming into St. Thomas. This plant is expected to be the largest of its type in the world and require an immense amount of construction resources. So any further delays could impact costing when it comes to procuring a company willing to proceed with the construction project. The cost increase of this nature would push the project arguably past the brink of feasibility. And while smaller increases of up to $250,000 may be captured via use of strategic reserves such as the road construction reserve and or OSIF and gas tax, should council go in that direction, or use of the parkland reserve, increases over and above that make the project financially no longer viable without the use of debt, which, as council is aware, staff generally don't recommend for non-core projects. This is due in part to council having allocated a portion of the contingency reserve and Parks and Playground Reserve for other short-term projects, including the generator replacement at the Port Burwell Fire Hall and the overage for the multi-use court at the Vienna Community Park. And council has also resolved to repurpose the dredging reserve as the lighthouse reserve, which removes that from potentially being used for this project. Council is also aware of certain cost pressures in functional areas that have led to a decreased revenue and or increased costs in 2023 and have placed the municipality in a deficit position. Council was advised of this in October of this year by way of the Q3 variance report. I am pleased to provide council some information that deficit position through some Belt tightening, operationally has come down slightly, but we are still in a deficit position currently. There are some competing budget priorities, as council is aware. So we have the draft 2024-2033 capital budget and 10-year plan approved in principle. This plan includes some substantial core needs that are coming up between 2026 and 2030, specifically needs with respect to the Port Burwell secondary system transmission main, proposed phases of the Port Burwell master drainage plan, specifically 4 phases that are currently out under the DMAP program for grant review, and potential expansion of the wastewater treatment plant. So these works would require a combination of own source municipal revenue, debt, and upper level government support to fund. I key on debt because we are trying to free up debt space currently held by the Ojibwa to provide as much latitude as possible to fund some of these larger infrastructure projects. And another mechanism that council hasn't considered yet for some of these large core projects are public-private partnerships to offset cost and risk exposure in association with design, build, finance, and operate mechanisms around these types of projects. This may be something that council considers in the future should the opportunity present itself. And council has already pledged under its community strategic plan to be aggressive on paying down the outstanding Ojibwa principal by March 2025. Any additional debt, particularly for non-core projects at this time, would not be recommended, especially with core infrastructure needs foreseen in the near future. And this is something that I mentioned when we had the action correspondence from Suzanne Schlotzauer. It's worth noting that the 2024 and 5 operating budget, we're hoping to have it out this week. It's likely going to be published on the website next Thursday. Baseline notional levy impact is currently projected around 22%, and council may seek to utilize OSIP and gas tax reserves to underwrite and reduce the levy impact by shifting eligible capital costs from the levy to reserves. This would effectively remove a chunk of, if not all, of the OSIP and gas tax funds for potential buffer available if the SEC expansion does experience a cost overrun through procurement. Another consideration, this one under non-core, is the lighthouse rehabilitation. Awaiting some other information on this, but although it's non-core in nature, Port Burwell Council did pass a bylaw under Part 4 of the Heritage Act with the intent to designate the lighthouse as a heritage building. So if the SEC expansion costs become prohibitive, and council chooses, if council chooses at whatever juncture not to proceed, the facilities reserve allocation for the project could be reallocated in whole or in part to the rehabilitation of the lighthouse or other priority initiatives, such as the repayment of the Ojibwa debt or reserve allocations for core infrastructure needs. So there are some, competing interests here in the strat plan, and that strat plan does note that the Port Burwell Lighthouse rehabilitation is an initiative, and council has to date pledged approximately $63,600 in municipal funds. So recognizing a lot of this, staff are providing no specific recommendation at this time. This is a major capital works update provided for information purposes. The recommendations before council to receive for information and provide any direction, if any, regarding the proposed expansion. If council chooses to receive for information, staff are of the assumption that we will continue to wait for word from ISIP, bring something back to council at that time, and that will continue as is. If council wishes to deviate from that plan, then we'd be seeking direction in that regard. It's worth reiterating that should council choose to deviate and ultimately not move forward with the project, given cost impacts and competing priorities, there are certain aspects of the project that were packaged and are going to have to be broken out as standalone items. Specifically, the SCC HVAC system. This is a system that has required a fair amount of maintenance 3 of the past 4 years, which is impacting our operating budget. So this will have to be upgraded regardless. It will have to be broken out as a standalone item. The other considerations are the cistern, which may be considered again as a standalone item. And if council wishes to proceed, the accessible multi-use path could be broken out and considered as a standalone item as well, but it would have to be something funded by Parks and Playground Reserve. So recognizing that, I think council probably was looking forward to better information at this stage of the project. This is the environment we're faced with at the moment. Mr. Mayor, I will leave it with you and council for any discussion, any questions. And I do believe the treasurer is still online to discuss some of the budget implications that we may be facing. And I'll leave it with you.
I thank you for that report and for the information it contains. All right, I'll look to council. Is there any action you wish to take on it tonight? You wish to receive for information? What do you wish to do? Councilor Chilcott.
I think this is very similar to the lighthouse. We don't have a target because we don't have all the information, so we should receive it for information until we have all the information.
Reasonable? You willing to put that in motion?
Yes.
All right, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question. If we receive it for information tonight and wait for the decision, did we not give staff the go-ahead to tender?
No,
No.
no. We haven't got the information. We're just receiving it for information.
Mr. Mayor, can we direct staff to prioritize and kind of somewhat cost while we're waiting to see the ICP grant, the most important parts of like obviously the HV and the heating that needs to be looked at, but an order of things that we can maybe determine a course of action and be prudent with the whole cost and timeline while we're waiting for the ICP, like an alternative strategy with priorities.
Council can do whatever it wants at this point. If you wish to put together an action plan, originally in the capital plan, those things, the HVAC system, were included in the capital plan, were pulled out and put back under this particular program with the ICP. So they have an idea of what needs to be done.
Well, could we reiterate priorities in the meantime?
Whatever you wish to do. There is a particular motion on the floor. It needs a seconder. And unless you wish to amend your motion. Well, is there a seconder for that particular motion? Receive information. Councilor Frost. So the report CAO 62 or 6323 regarding Scrabble Community Center expansion, timeline update and financial impacts to be received for information. All in favor? Okay, opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I didn't know what that motion was it just to receive for information?
Just to receive for information.
Yeah.
Report CAO 6623 by Thomas Thayer, CAO regarding amendments, site plan agreement, Periscope Playhouse, SBA 0523. Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, under the site plan program, we received application in October from the Port Burwell Periscope Playhouse Incorporated, requesting site plan control application amendment to their existing agreement. The existing agreement was authorized by bylaw 2021-034, and it is agreement 0781 in the municipality's records. Periscope Playhouse received a grant application through the OTF towards renovation addition of the existing unoccupied section of the theater building. They're requesting amendment to the existing site plan agreement in support of replacing this unoccupied section with a new one-story 1,243 square foot addition with a mezzanine and unfinished basement. The intent of the new space is an expanded lobby, servery, kitchenette, and mezzanine area for sound room and associated storage. Due to the changed orientation of the building addition from the existing unoccupied section, updates to the site plan and lot grading and drainage plan were required and have been made. The engineer's stamp drawings are included in the agreement. So this agreement has been authorized by both parties. It's before council for information purposes, and my understanding is that they received today their conditional permit for foundation works while they work on mechanical and plumbing and engineering for the shell and to formulate a full permit application. So another good news project in the municipality. And Mr. Mayor and Council, I'll leave it with you.
All right, thank you very much for that report. Does anyone have any questions regarding the Periscope Playhouse? I know that Councillor Emerson and myself were involved in some last minute maneuvering in order to make sure that they made their application deadline.
Yeah.
Happy to do so, and I'm happy that they are at the stage they are.
Me too. I just wish at some point that we didn't have to do last minute stuff.
Well, agreed. Yeah, yeah. Any questions? Motion is a report CAO 6623 regarding amendment to site plan agreement, Periscope Playhouse Inc., 42 Wellington Street, Port Burwell, application SPA 0523, be received for information. We have a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Emerson. And did I see Deputy Mayor Weiser's hand up? Then all in favor? Carried? Okay. I'm gonna call a break shortly. Let's get through the bylaws and get into call a break, all right? Section 14 bylaws. We have 3 bylaws to deal with. Bylaw number 2023-086 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of enabling accessibility fund agreement between His Majesty, the King and Right of Canada, and the Corporation Municipality of Bayham for works to the Marine Museum entrance and washroom. Item B, bylaw number 2023-087 being a bylaw for the management, regulation, control of cemeteries. Item C, bylaw number 2023-088 being a bylaw to adopt schedules for A through H for the management, regulation, and control of cemeteries. So the motion reads that bylaw numbers 2023-086, 2023-087, and 2023-088 be read first, second, and third time and finally passed. Mover and seconder, Councillor Chilcott and Deputy Mayor Weiser, all in favor. That's carried. Brings us to section 16. Well, you're just, let's see how it works. 16.1 in camera, that council do now rise to enter into an in-camera session at 9:43 PM to discuss confidential item regarding labor relations, employee negotiations, compensation, confidential item regarding sale or disposition of land, a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. Bay Street. Would you be interested in moving that, Councillor Chilcott? Well, it's already pre-populated on that.
Okay, I did see that.
Deputy Mayor Weiser, you would second that? There you
Of
go.
course. Thank you.
All in favor? That's carried. All right. We are taking a break.